and the kinds of things that people can do together when we work towards a common goal. And I should just want to start off with a bracha for everybody, that we should be able to pass together, that we should break through the boundaries of obstacles that obstruct us from working with other people. We should be able to have easy connections with other people, and together we should grow a strong, prosperous family, in the first row, community and city, country, world, and we should be able to continue to influence people positively.
Amen. Amen. Wow. Well, let's give a bracha to the birthday boy. Baruch Hashem, new change of place, new change of mazel, and round two is always with more energy and more power and more light and more joy than round one. So welcome back to town. Round two is double bracha and double simcha and double mazel. L'chaim, l'chaim.
Before the rabbi talks, anybody else want a l'chaim?
It's in l'chaim on Sod also. It's the same thing. Malachim shakel niyah.
Amen.
Also still some chicken burgers, if anyone wants some chicken burgers.
Where are the chicken burgers?
On the back.
Everything here is parv, so that's okay.
Okay. This rabbi is on vacation and he goes to this desert island. And while he's on this island, he wants to try out new exotic foods he hasn't had before. So he goes into this restaurant and he orders the most famous non-kosher animal for dinner. But unfortunately for the rabbi, he's sitting there and the waitress serves him this huge non-kosher animal with an apple in its mouth, and as he's about to dig in for the first time, he's waiting to say shechiyanu for having this delicacy. He sees Harold Goldstein. Harold Goldstein's the president of a synagogue. How is he going to explain what he's doing to Harold Goldstein? This is very embarrassing. He's eating non-kosher and it looks terrible. Harold, what a meshugana place we're in. I ordered an apple, and this is what they serve. Similar joke. Unfortunately, people take it the wrong way. People think that if you order something kosher in a restaurant, or if you buy something kosher in a grocery store, if it says OU, OK, Chav K, whatever sign it says that it's kosher, whatever rabbi says it's kosher, that means that it's kosher. It's not. And if it's not kosher, it's the rabbi's fault. That's how people feel. It's I'm doing my due diligence, and God can hold me accountable if it's not kosher, because after all, I ordered kosher. I tried to make it kosher. Shmerel goes into a non-kosher restaurant, and the rabbi, this is a different kind of rabbi, he sees Shmerel walk into the non-kosher restaurant. He can't believe it. Why would Shmerel walk into a non-kosher restaurant? He's getting water. What's he doing? He walks in, and Shmerel orders a non-kosher dinner. And he sits down and he's eating non-kosher. And the rabbi is flabbergasted. He can't even move from the spot. He's watching Shmerel eat a whole non-kosher dinner. Shmerel walks out and the rabbi is just shocked, pale. Shmerel, what happened to you? What do you mean what happened to me? I just saw you eat. Rabbi, 1 second, hold on. You were watching me, right? Yes. Every moment I was watching, I couldn't believe it. First you ate this, and then 1 second, Rabbi. If you were watching me, then everything I was eating was under rabbinical supervision. But the truth is that just because it's called kosher, just because it's advertised as kosher, doesn't mean it's kosher, even if it's not your fault. And let me add to that and go a level deeper. Let me put the fan a little hot over there. There are some situations where the Torah doesn't just allow you to keep. How do you do the other one? Thank you. There are some situations in which you are mandated by Torah to eat non-kosher. For example, if your life depends on it. Life depends on it, there's no food, you have to eat non-kosher. However, the Gemara says that in that situation, although the Torah says to do it, it has an adverse effect on your body and an adverse effect on your soul. There was a very famous sage in the Talmud called Elisha ben Avuya. Elisha ben Avuya at one point became a heretic. He left Judaism completely. And the Talmud was discussing what had happened to him. How come he suddenly just left Judaism? What happened? And the Talmud answers, his mother was once, while she was pregnant with him, she once passed by this delicious aroma, which was an offering to idolatry, and she had to have it. Her life depended on it. She was a pregnant woman. She was hungry. She had to have it. And so she ate from this aroma, from this not only non-kosher, but this idolatrous sacrifice. So because his mother ate from that had an effect on him in the way he grew up, in his psyche, and that's how he left Judaism, because his mother ate that. Now in that situation, his mother had a mitzvah to eat the non-kosher food. And yet, although it was a mitzvah, it still has an adverse effect. Now the question is, how could that be? If Torah says to do something, how could it be has a bad effect on you? And the answer is, sometimes the Torah says, it's just like a doctor would say, cut off one limb to save the body. So too, sometimes the Torah says that a person has to eat non-kosher because the Torah wants his life to continue and him to do many, many other good things in the world. But it doesn't mean that non-kosher food doesn't have an adverse effect. I know someone who suddenly had these strange thoughts. Like he felt like an attraction to things he knew that leave much to be desired and unbecoming. And he asked the Rebbe for a blessing, and the Rebbe said, pay attention to what you're eating. Pay attention to the food you've eaten lately. Sometimes you eat something not good, you are what you eat, and affects you, and sometimes it brings in some kind of negative energy. The food you eat has a great effect. So this is all relevant this week, because this week we're reading in this week's Torah portion about the laws of kosher. We're learning about what makes animals kosher. In general, in Torah, there are certain things, certain signs, which are called goyrmim, and some which are called mevarerim, which means some things the Torah says are the cause, they make something happen, and some things are just like a sign for us that something is kosher. Doesn't make it happen, but it's something for us to identify with. So the Torah says there's two signs for an animal to be kosher. It has to have split hooves and shuat's cut. Unlike other non-kosher animals, are the split hooves, are they something that make the animal kosher, or is it just something for us to tell it it's kosher? Is it kosher because it has split hooves? Or is it kosher because it's a cow? Cows are kosher. How do we determine which animals are kosher? We look at the hooves. That's how we know. But it's not that it makes it kosher. For example, if let's say there's a mutant cow, and this cow didn't have split hooves, would it still be kosher? So there's much discussion about this among the codifiers. If let's say there was a mutant non-kosher animal that had a non-kosher offspring, would that be kosher? So generally, the rule is whatever has a kosher mother is kosher, has a non-kosher mother is not kosher. However, the discussion isn't so simple. There's room for both sides of the coin. But any way you look at it, the fact that Torah gave us these signs must have a message for us. There must be something of these particular signs that are relevant to us in our lives. Everything in Torah has a message. So what's the message? What is the Torah trying to tell us by giving us these specific signs? What are we learning from this? So the first sign is, before we get to the first sign, these are signs about what we can eat. Eating in Kabbalah, in Chassidus, in Judaism has meaning. Hashem made a food chain. There's inanimate, there's vegetation, there's animals, there's humans, and Hashem made the world in a way that everything has to rise and go to a higher level. You can't be stagnant, you have to go to a higher level. The ground feeds the grass feeds the animals feeds the humans. Is that where the food chain stops? Does the food chain stop with us? So the animals are elevated, everything is in a state of ascent, everything goes higher, and it all feeds towards us. The grass has fed the cows, and now we've eaten the cow, and now it's done. Or, Torah says that there's more. Man has to ascend to what's higher than man. It's not enough for you to be man, you have to go higher. In Hebrew, the word for Adam, which means man, is similar, actually the word Adam means similar to the spiritual, similar to the supernal holiness in heaven. Adam means Adameh. A human is someone who is similar to the divine. So when a person eats, it's not supposed to stop there. He's supposed to bring the energy of the food and use it for something otherworldly, higher, holy, spiritual. If you hang around the Hasidic shul long enough, you're going to hear these words. You have to elevate the mundane. You have to sanctify the physical. But how can you tell if you're actually doing that? And what do those words really mean? So that's why the Torah gives us these signs. These signs are a litmus test to tell you if you're really serving God, if you're really on a path to be elevated, going towards a higher place, or not. Among human pleasures, there's physical pleasures that we eat, we drink, our body has pleasure. And there's a more spiritual pleasure, a pleasure of being kind to somebody, a pleasure of kindness, a pleasure of love. It's a higher kind of pleasure. There's a pleasure of music. It's a deeper kind of pleasure. There's a pleasure you have from discovering a new idea, a new insight. So there's a hierarchy in different kinds of pleasure. So just like Hashem made the world in a way that everything has to ascend, so too a human being is told that you have to stand on 2 feet. Unlike animals, we're standing on 4 because we have to look upwards. We have to go somewhere higher. We can't be satisfied just looking at the ground. We have a place to go. So are you going somewhere? Are you eating? Are you going to a higher place? Or is it just stopping with you? So the Torah gives us 2 signs to determine if we're going the right direction. The first sign is split hooves. What split hooves mean? Split hooves means that you don't just have one way of doing things. What does that mean? Some people are introverts, and they like to study, like to sit down, and they love to there's no limit to their appetite for knowledge and understanding. They always want to learn more. They always want to understand deeper things. And some people just they have no attention span. They just want to dance and sing and fap. Everyone has their own way of doing it. And so the Alter Rebbe writes that in the times of the earlier Greek philosophers, there were people who were noblemen and they were very well off, but they didn't care about food. They just spent time all day, all night learning. And yet, although they're doing this wonderful the pursuit of knowledge, it was all because of their own passion for pursuit of knowledge, all because of their nature. It wasn't godly. It was human. It was because of the way they were. How can you tell if it's godly? How can you tell if you're serving God if you don't stick to one area of serving God? I'll tell you a story. There was a Jew, his name was Rabbi Yitzchak Eisenbach. Rabbi Yitzchak Eisenbach, he grew up in Jerusalem, and he used to hang around the Hasidic court of the Chernobyl Rebbe. He used to be the guy who would, thank you very much, Mrs. Gudovich, for setting up the farbrengen. That was the job of Yitzchak Eisenbach. He used to always set up the farbrengen. That was his job. And he used to run around, and when they had a kiddush, he was to be the one making the kugel and the cholent. That was his thing. One Shabbos, he was from a very poor family. One day, this little Jerusalemite boy, he's walking around, and he sees a gold coin on the floor, and it's Shabbos. So he's very excited. It's 4 hours left till Shabbos. He'll put his foot on this gold coin, and after Shabbos, he'll have it. You're not allowed to do anything else. You can't carry it, but does it say anywhere you can't stand there and watch it? Why not? So he has his foot on the gold coin, and he's standing there for half an hour, and while he's standing there, some Arab boy sees this Jewish kid looking suspicious, something up his sleeve, and the Arab kid figures out that there's something this guy is trying to protect. He pushes the kid down. He heard the kid licked his bruises, and he left, and the Arab took the gold, and that was it. The boy went back to the Kiddush by the Chernobyl Rebbe. He goes to the Kiddush of the Chernobyl Rebbe, and the Chernobyl Rebbe sees that this young boy is not in the same spirit as he usually is. He sees this guy is broken, something's hurting him. He says, that's not the same. What's wrong? He tells the Chernobyl Rebbe what happened. He found this thing, and his family's so poor, and it would have helped him so much, and now he can't have it. Chernobyl Rebbe said to him, please come to me after Shabbos. Comes to him after Shabbos. The Chernobyl Rebbe says to him, I want to buy the merit of the mitzvah you did today. The mitzvah you did, that you didn't take that coin, I want to buy the merit of that mitzvah. I want to buy it for a gold coin. I want to buy the merit of this mitzvah. So the boy thought about it, and he said, no, I'm not selling this mitzvah. It's a mitzvah. If a mitzvah is worth so much, you're willing to invest a gold coin in it, I don't want to sell the mitzvah. And he said this experience ingrained in him, it cultivated within him, this sense of a hierarchy of what's important, what's not important, the value of a mitzvah. For his whole life, it gave him an insight of a way to weigh things and measure things. The Talmud says, story in the similar vein. The Talmud says there was a man named Rabbi ben Kisma who was visited by a colleague of his named Rabbi ben Tradian. Rabbi ben Tradian visited Rabbi ben Kisma. Rabbi ben Tradian was a man who, although the Romans forbade any Torah study, he did it anyways. Rabbi ben Kisma says to his guest, these Talmudic scholars, they just spoke the truth. It's hard to understand how they were actually very close friends looking at this conversation, but it's not. This is how good friends speak. They speak absolute truth. He says to him, I heard, the sick man, Rabbi ben Kisma, says to Rabbi Chanina, I heard that you're studying Torah in public. He says, yeah, but the Romans said not to. How can you do this? He says, God will help. God will help. Well, God gave this nation the power to destroy his temple, to exile his children. And now they're ruling and they're saying, don't study Torah in public or else. What are you thinking? I wouldn't be surprised, which is actually what happened, if they would take you and burn you alive with the Torah. Which is what happened in Rabbi Tradian. That's how, a good friend, right? So Rabbi Tradian's response is, okay, so what will happen to me in the world to come? Okay, so that's where I'm going. I get it. That's where I'm going. What's going to happen in the world to come? So interesting exchange happens. Rabbi ben Kisma asked Rabbi Tradian, have you ever done anything special in your life? When does it? His guy is studying Torah in public under the threat of the Romans, and he's asking, have you ever done anything special? He says, well, his response is even more amazing. He says, one time, I was collecting money for the poor on Purim, and the money that I collected for the poor got mixed in with my own money, and I gave it all away to the charity. So Rabbi ben Kisma responded, Rabbi ben Tradian, he says, if that's what happened, then I wish that my portion should be with you. I wish that I would be at the same place in heaven with you. That's what Rabbi ben Tradian said. That's what Rabbi ben Kisma said. What's the exchange over here? What happened? Rabbi ben Kisma was telling Rabbi ben Tradian, it's true you learn Torah, it's true you love the Torah, it's true you give your life for Torah, but maybe you're doing it all because you love the intellect of it. Maybe you love the wisdom. Maybe just a pursuit of wisdom. Who says it's you? Who says you change? Who says it's... So he said to him, have you done anything special? Have you done anything which is not connected to study? Have you ever shown that you have something else going on? It's not just about knowledge and study and the pursuit of wisdom. To be so generous is a very different kind of nature, characteristic, than to be so diligent and studious. So he said, when you gave that money away, so Rabbi ben Kisma said, I know that what's going on with your Torah study is not about you, it's about Hashem. It's a similar thing I saw this week, amazing. Our Rebbeim, the Alter Rebbe from the Baal Shem Tov, they emphasized that you have to do a Jew a favor physically, which means you shouldn't just try to help a person out spiritually, help him put on tefillin, help him keep kosher. You have to do a favor for a person. The Baal Shem Tov made a campaign to be nice to people. It was novel. It was something new. Baal Shem Tov invented this thing. Do favors for people physically. It's true. It's in the Torah, but the Baal Shem Tov put he revealed the value of when a Jew does a Jew a favor, and how powerful that is, and how precious that is. So there's a marked difference between when you do something for yourself, or you do something for someone else. If I do something that benefits me, and it benefits me physically, what part of me is interested in doing that thing? My body. If I do something that benefits me physically, what part of me is into it? My body wants it. If I do something that benefits me spiritually, only spiritually, not physically, what part of me is interested in doing it? My neshama, my soul. What about if I do something for you? If I help you physically, what part of me has benefit from you having something better physically? My neshama. My body doesn't have any gain from you enjoying life more. When I do you a favor physically, I'm using something deeper within myself. If I go out to help you, and I'm going beyond my nature to help you, I'm using my neshama. That's neshama. For myself, I do something that helps me physically, I'm using my body. But if I'm helping you, that comes from the soul. That's a spiritual energy. So when Mashiach will come, we're going to see in the world how there's no separation between the physical and the spiritual. We're going to see how Hashem, all there is Hashem. So in order to prepare for the coming of Mashiach, our Rebbeim began this campaign of going out there and not just thinking about helping people spiritually, but to be nice to people physically, to help people physically, to help their lives be easier. Because when you do that, what happens is you bridge the gap between the physical and the spiritual. You show there's no separation. You're doing something physical, but you're revealing something. You're revealing how the physical and the spiritual are one. You're revealing how you're doing something physical, but really it's coming from the Shema. So that's why to be kosher, you have to have split hooves. Split hooves means that you don't just have one way you do things, but you're open. You're ready to do whatever God sends your way. Not just in one area, but all areas. What's the second sign of being kosher? The second sign is chewing your cud. What's chewing your cud mean? Chewing your cud means you can't have to question yourself. You can't just say, "Oh, I'm doing it," and I'm in the language of Popeye. You heard of Popeye? Popeye said a word. I don't know his Jewish name, but anyways, Popeye said a word. I am what I am. That's all I am. Right? That's Popeye's word. That's so. Some people are used to doing things. You ask them, "Why do you do this?" Well, that's what I do. And so the Torah says, question yourself. Question yourself. Ma'ilagir, chew your cud means if you're doing something and it's beneficial to you, you may not be doing the right thing. You have to question. You have to have a seilu charav. You have to have mashpia. You have to have a personal spiritual mentor. If you're doing something and it's beneficial and you have some selfish interest in it, then you may not be doing the right thing. In other words, just because we're physical people and we're attracted to the physical, so whenever you're doing something that has some kind of benefit to you, it could be that you're not doing the right thing. It could be you're doing it just because your body's attracted to it, not because it's really the right thing. If there's something that the Torah tells us to engage with the physical, the Torah tells us to elevate the physical, but it could be because my body wants the physical as well, I might not be doing the right thing. So Torah says, talk to somebody. And the Rebbe emphasized that even if you can't find someone who is better than you spiritually, because you're like Rabbi Romano, came in from Berkeley, greatest tzaddikim and chassidim. So who's going to talk to over here? So the Rebbe says, even if you can't find someone who's higher than you, so find someone that's less than you. Talk to somebody. Don't trust. Don't try to lift yourself up by pulling your hair. Don't. I've tried. It doesn't work. Talk to somebody. Be open with somebody. Those are the two signs. The signs if you're serving Hashem in the right way are, number one, split hooves. Split hooves means that you're not just focused on one way of serving Hashem, and this is very connected to the time we're in now. This Shabbos is the first day of the month of Elul. Elul, the theme of the month of Elul is Ani L'Doidi. I come to my beloved. I'm coming for myself, going beyond my habits, beyond my nature, to come closer to Hashem. Ani L'Doidi. There's a way I do things. But comes the month of Elul, all of a sudden, the Sephardic community gets up very early every day of the month of Elul, and they say Slichas. You know why they say Slichas? Because they eat rice on Passover. They look at us and on Passover with the full stomachs because they eat all that rice, and it's there for they have to have 30 days of. I'm just kidding. But a joke is a joke. Relax. I'm just kidding. All right. So but it's not just about Sephardic community. Everybody. The month comes the month of Elul realizes they have to do something more. We add in something. The shofar. We start making a calculation of where we are. What are we trying to do in the month of El? What's supposed to happen? What are we saying every morning? Shamnu bagadnu, forgive me for what? What are we asking Hashem to forgive us for? What are we asking for forgiveness for? All of a sudden the month of El comes, and all of a sudden we finish a vacation in the month of August, and I'm having a great vacation. All of a sudden comes the month of El. Oh, can you please forgive me? It doesn't fit in. What's going on? Why now? So just briefly, historically, this time of year is when Moses went up the mountain on Mount Sinai and he asked God to forgive the Jewish people, and God agreed. And day one of El, come up the mountain, I'm going to forgive the Jewish people, and I'm going to give you second tablets. And 40 days later in Yom Kippur, God gave Moses the second tablets. The Alter Rebbe says, so every year, these 40 days are special days when Shah Dardashta, the king is in the field, God is open to us, accepts us with a smiling face, and we ask for anything we want. It's a special time. And we come to God and we ask God to forgive us. What are we asking for forgiveness for? For being old, for being tired, for being. When you're young, you want to go against the grain. You want to change. You're idealistic. You want everything to be different. When you get older, you're just looking for stability, looking to relax, looking for things to be regular. Comes the month of El, Hashem says, I want Anila Deidi. I want you to come to me. I want you from your own efforts, from yourself. Anila Deidi. Not to be tired. To start to show the power of your neshama, to show your youth, to show your youngness, to show your. So Baruch Hashem, Mr. Gudovich over here is coming another year younger, another year more intelligent. That's what everybody writes. A year older is a year frumer, a year smarter, and a year frumer. So you should have a year of atzlacha, begashmis, and ruchnius, koyach, power to the month of Av. You should have a freilich gemensch year, and all of us preparing for the new year have to get younger. Simcha livav, chayis. Not to be stuck on one particular way. Not to leave exactly at 8:44. Chaim v'racha. Amen.
Amen.
What's your halacha for your birthday? New Year's resolution?
I was actually going to ask you about that after.
You sure you want to do that?
Yeah, I'm so sure. That's how I know I need to do it for Hashem.
The Rebbe said it's always good. It's always good to, when you make a decision, someone asked the Rebbe, how come whenever I make a decision it doesn't last? I make a decision, they don't last. The Rebbe said a very good thing is to do is two reasons. Number one, the Rebbe says is when you make a decision, you try to leap too high, try to take too much. Number two, the Rebbe says speak to someone else. You don't want to disappoint the person you spoke to. So you make it a good decision and you make it in a way that's not too high. You tell someone else about it, it's the best way to make sure that it should stay.
There's another reason, though, like along the lines of what you just said.
No.
That if I make a hachlata for myself, do I really know that the reason I'm doing this is because it's is it my neshama that's making the hachlata, or is it just reinforcing something that I'm in the habit of doing that I enjoy doing on my own merit?
Okay, that's a very good point. Let me address what you're asking. He's asking a very good question. He's asking, what about doing something for the wrong reason? Maybe I'm not at the level. Maybe I'm not serving God. Maybe I am everything self-serving. So maybe I should stop doing good things because
No. That's what I'm saying.
Maybe I shouldn't start doing another
Maybe
good
I'll
thing.
say like, oh, my hachlata is going to be another shir chassidus, but really the hachlata that I need to do is not to do with learning, with visiting sick people or having a farbrengen or.
The first thing you should do is you ask your wife what your halacha should be. That's the best thing to do.
Okay.
That's number one. That's number one. That's if you want to make a real halacha, that's the first person to ask. Okay. But just want to mention this point that I asked about. If I'm doing it for the wrong reason, so the Alter Rebbe said, action is the main thing. Zohar says action is the main thing. Asiyah le'ela. So it doesn't matter if you're doing something for the wrong reason. Number one, action is the main thing. Number two, the Torah says when you're doing something for the wrong reason, your neshama is doing it for the right reason. I saw yesterday, someone told the Rebbe asked him to do something, and the Rebbe said to him, the guy was like, I can't do this. The Rebbe said, why can't you do it? Weren't you in the oil yesterday? Didn't you visit my father-in-law's gravesite? Why can't you do it? So he responded to the Rebbe, my body was there. So the Rebbe said, your neshama was for sure there. So what's stopping you? So number two is that even if we do something for the wrong reason, our neshama is doing it for the right reason. And the most important thing is the impact of your mitzvah is primary. It doesn't matter your intention. For your own personal service of God, you have to challenge yourself and speak to your personal mentor and see which things you have to do to bring out your best and what things challenging you. But in regards to doing something for the benefit of other people, for the benefit of a mitzvah, never stop yourself from doing a mitzvah. Never stop. Don't say I'm doing it for the wrong reasons. Just keep on doing good. L'chaim v'rach. Hey, I'm thinking of David. Give us a thinking of David. Oh, no, again. Ayira, ma, ayira, ma, ayira, ma, ayira, oh, yara, ma, yara, ma, yara, ma, yama, ma, yara, ma, yara, ma, oh, ma, yara, ma, yara, Mama yana na na mama yana. Hey ya yana mama yana. Wow! Now we're starting a farbrengen. Ya yana. Oh yana. Zorg me echt. Ik lust naar me goed. Enkel. Ya mama yana. Oh yada mama yana nama. Oh yada mama yana nam. Oh mama yana.
Exactly, that's my point. Which means you have to stay like
Just for the smell.
Chaim Rocha.
Isn't that what the Rebbe said? That's why it should be on the table, so you see it.
That's it.
Rabbi Hecht makes a few brachas, so I'll tell you one more thought, and that is as follows. Parshas Re'eh always falls out in the same time of Elul. Why? What does Re'eh mean? Re'eh means to see. It's possible some things you have conviction of, but then that's not such strong conviction. When you see something, that gives you the strongest, most vivid conviction. This is the truth. So the Torah says, Re'eh anechi. Re'eh anechi, the Rebbe says that means it's possible for a Jew to have a vivid clarity in the truth of Torah mitzvahs. It's possible for us to have a vivid clarity, not just the truth of Torah mitzvahs, the truth of the world. What's the truth of the world? The Hebrew translation of Re'eh is to see, but the numerical value of Re'eh is a word raz, makelo. Re'eh equals secret. Everything in the world has a secret. There's a physical components, the properties, the dimensions of something, and there's the secret. What's a secret? The secret is the godly energy of something. So Torah says, Re'eh anochi, it's possible for a Jew to live with, to see, to be in touch with the emes, the truth. And not just to also be in touch with the truth, but that should be the truest thing to us. The truest, the most, everyone knows that Hashem and the Torah mitzvahs, that's also true. But their taxes are a little closer, and they're speaking to an accountant about the truth of taxes. I have to tell you about that. But there's a higher. But the Rebbe says it's possible for a Jew to reach the message of this parsha. Not just possible for a Jew. The focus we have right now is Re'eh anochi, that Torah and mitzvahs and God and truth of the world and godliness and divine providence should be something that's vivid to us. And what happens when that happens? Ani l'doidi. In order for ani l'doidi means my whole being should be to the one I love. It shouldn't just be that I do things for the one I love, but ani l'doidi, my whole being should be for the one I love. How can I cultivate that kind of relationship? It has to do with seeing divine providence, by seeing Hashem in my life. When I see, not just I believe, but I feel Hashem in a way that this is the truth, in a way that I see it, that triggers something, that causes something to resonate within yourself. That you could say ani l'doidi, that it's. I just came off a plane, and I don't know if you noticed this, but the plane, they have an elongated beep at the end when you get your luggage. So first, when you get your belongings, first is a beep to put on your seatbelt. It's a shorter beep. Then there's a longer one at the end. Sometimes at the end of that beep. I'm not speaking hieroglyphics, but it reminded me of the shofar. You start for your year, there's one beep. The shofar, you blow the shofar now. Then there's the last beep, the long one of the shofar gadol, the end of Yom Kippur. And sometimes at the end of that last lo shofar gadol, it triggers something within yourself. And you say, "Oh, I need to be different this year. The shofar gadol, the loud shofar of Yom Kippur touches something." So similarly, Parshas Re'eh. Hashem wants us to be somewhere. How do you be somewhere? Ani l'doidi, I should be from my beloved. It has to do with what we look at. We see divine providence. We see things. Last night, when I was on the plane, Baruch Hashem, I always have very good mazel to do very interesting mitzvahs. So one of the interesting mitzvahs I did yesterday was that my luggage ended up in the following flight, and my plane was delayed till already 1 o'clock. The next plane came at 1:30, but the luggage didn't get there till 2:30. So I'm sitting there at this what's it called?
Carousel.
At 2:30 in the morning, and I see all of a sudden this Jew sits next to me with a yarmulke, kippah. Guy sits at 2:30 in the morning, and he looked like that he just was roaming the terminals, which he was. I said, "Why are you roaming the terminals? What's going on?" He says, "Well, I'm waiting for my flight. We have another 12 hours to the flight, so I'm just touring the airport." So I realized, okay, there must be a reason why you're here.
12 hours.
Must be a reason why you're here, and we just start. And he shared a word of Torah with me. I shared a word of Torah with him. Divine providence. Why else am I in the airport at 2:30 in the morning? It must be he had to hear a word of Torah. I had to hear a word of Torah from him. That's to see in your life, to see this divine providence. And when you see divine providence, whatever it is, then it causes anila deity. I into my beloved. I myself, the way I am. Baruch Hashem, Yosef Romano. Baruch Hashem, Hashem sent us a great chassidim into the town of Pico Robertson. Baruch Hashem, sent us Jay Gudovich over here. Baruch Hashem, Gemach Chassidim Tevim. You see these geschmacke Yid, and Hashem send a great shluchim to this town. It makes you feel Hashem's presence. I know Rabbi Hechel with this thing. Well, it'd be great if they send them to somewhere to Brentwood too. I don't disagree. But the word is
build them from scratch there.
Yeah, you build them over there and send them over here. Anyways, the word is anila deidi. Anila deidi means that to be yourself. You yourself feel connection to Hashem. How do you get that? How do you feel that you yourself, that you, the I, into my beloved, that comes by seeing divine providence. L'chaim, l'chaim, l'chaim.
Chaim.
Sean.
Talking about us exporting our chassidim to you. So on my way here, I had an interesting piece of news.
Huh?
Daniel Manvar is getting married this coming Tuesday, Bais Hashem. We sent him off to New York to go learn Torah, etc., and prepare himself for his chuppah. So today he calls me on the phone, and he says somebody told him if he's smart, he has opportunity to buy glila because they're taking out Shabbos Chodesh. So they're going to use Mashiach Sefer Torah for the parsha, and they're going to use the Rebbe Sefer Torah from after. So glila for the Rebbe Sefer Torah is $360. If he wants, he can buy it. Should he buy it or shouldn't he? I said, you didn't hear yet from the girl what aliyah you're getting. What's the rush? So Daniel is getting mafter in the Rebbe Sefer Torah.
Wow.
Now you didn't have to buy Galila, instead you get an aliyah. These things are not perchance. Technically it's a girdle, but it's right, the girdle, the girdle itself cries out. Was the girl crying out that Daniel Navar is a young man who works on himself? So he's zeichen not just to have the Rebbe Zaliyah, but to have the Rebbe Zaliyah in the Rebbe Sefer Torah. I'm blown away. I'm humbled by it. I'm totally blown away. And the truth is that when you... Thank you.
I'm going to leave this here.
Yes, please. Thank you. So when you talk in terms of Anila Doidi Li, which you started to talk about, so the way the Rebbe explains the famous Maimon of the Alter Rebbe and Anila Doidi Li, Melech Pasada, etc., etc., we were learning it together, the Alter Rebbe's Maimon. We just came to the part where the Alter Rebbe introduces that there's 3 levels: Midbar, Sada, and Bais.
Banglit.
A desert is a desolate land. A field is a place where vegetation grows. And then there's your house. Each one is a different plate, a different level of potential for dwelling. The desert, by definition, is a desolate land. And as a desolate land, it provides very little room for growth. That's what deserts are. And the Alter Rebbe in his Maimer compares that to a person whose thought, speech, and action, machshava dibur u'maisa, is such that that he's living in a desolate land. His thought, speech, and action, his focal point, his frame of reference is not one of relationship to God, but instead his frame of reference is one of relationship and focus on self. Consumed with one's own self-existence. At that point, so the desert, of course, is a state of great disadvantage, because it puts you in a position where you're in a position, therefore, where you're not really strongly identifying with Hashem. You don't have a strong, intimate, and deep connection with Hashem. But the flip side of that is that you're at an incredible advantage. Because only a person who recognizes how bad things are can truly cry out for things to get better. If you're not in if you don't recognize you're in a desolate land, if you're living in Pico Robertson here at Kodesh, 31 flavors of ice cream straight across the street at Munchies.
That'd be great.
Life is good.
Flavors.
Whatever. On the rare occasion that I go to Munchies, I get the same flavor every time. So, what's Teigusmir? In other words, if you put 31 different flavors there, I went one time, my kids begged me to go to 180. I hope nobody here owns the place.
What's 180? No.
You don't even know what it is? You live in this neighborhood? Or what?
He just moved here.
Oh, you just moved here. There's a pizza place on Pico, on the north side of the street, just west of La Cienega. Very, very shishi. Where you walk in, and you make your own pizza, basically. You start off, there's a choice of doughs. And then what kind of sauce do you want? Then what kind of cheese do you want? Then what kind of toppings do you want? My kids made me take them there. On a Sunday in the summer, Baruch Hashem, Pico is inundated with tourists from all over the world. Jews come from the North Pole, the South Pole, and places in between, just to be able to be in Pico. And everybody's there. To get a table on a Sunday night in the summer in 180, bring along a baseball bat, and if that doesn't work, maybe money. And of course, you're sitting there with 4 kids, and you ordered pizza, and there's these 2 young girls who have long decided that they're not going to finish the one pizza that they bought together. They've long decided the rest of this is going home with them. They've long decided. And they see that there's not just me with my kids, there's 7 other families standing around looking for tables, and they're just sitting and talking. They couldn't go to the park across the street or someplace and finish their conversation and let people sit down. Okay? So I come in. That's already at the end of my experience. I've not gone back since. This was, I think, 2 years ago. And every time someone says 180, it's like Niagara Falls. Smoke starts coming out of my ears. Finished. I'm not going back. No, I don't care. So I come in, pizza station all the way. All the way. A million times better. I walk in, and because it was such a busy night, so we get on this long line. And then I'm looking up at this wall and going, OMG, I don't even know where to start. I don't even know where to start. Finally comes our turn, and now already there's a long line, right? What kind of dough do you want? What kind of dough do you want? What kind of dough do you want? I came in to get screamed at, to pay twice as much. I got so scared. Whoa. What's your best here? Nadir. For that, I could have gone to the pizza station. I have to come here to get screamed at, right? I have to fight over a table. So I don't know, 31 flavors ice cream, what would help me? I'd still order chocolate. Wouldn't make a difference. I could put 300 flavors of ice cream, I would still order chocolate. So you come over here, and you say to yourself, midbar? This is not a midbar. This is a desert? How could you call this a desert? Baruch Hashem. Every block on Pico today has 4 shuls and 2 pizza stores. And some blocks have 4 pizza stores and 2 shuls. Every flavor. One of our dear friends, Rabbi Lizak, so Lebanon Zayn a true chassid of the Rebbe. So when he was first becoming frum, like a few years into becoming frum, he had gone to 770 with me once already, twice I think. But for some reason, I don't remember why, he was in New York, he went to New York by himself. He calls me up, and he tells me, I had the best shachris of my life today. I said, in 770 downstairs, you had the best shachris of your life? He said, yeah. He said, this is the first time in my life I started Hoidu with the minyan, and I ended Aleinu with the minyan. This is the first time, it's never happened to me before. I said, really? Yeah. He said, 3 minyanim later. He said, I never moved from my place. I had my siddur, put on my talis and tefillin. I started Hoidu with 1 minyan, and I finished Aleinu 3 minyanim later. But I finished with the minyan. It was a machaya. Yeah. 3 barchus, 3 nagdishachs in various places. So he know Baruch Hashem, la halacha, how much you're allowed to interrupt. So he got nagdishach once only Kaddish Baruch and Yemlech, and another time just Hakela Kaddish, and another time the whole nagdishach. He got each time was different experience. Started Hoidu, I finished Aleinu, never moved from my seat. He said, I stayed in the same seat. Didn't move, I started Hoidu, ended Aleinu with the minyan.
In Kosher, if we need a reason to feel like an ani v'nat yeruach, you gotta go send your kids to school, get a tuition bill.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's why it's called Lechem Oini in Pesach, because by the time you finish paying for the matzah, you're a poor man. Yeah. So here we are, Baruch Hashem. The problem could become, the result, what you might become for that is, Mashiach's already here. What do you mean? Look how good things are. The Rebbe sent me on Shlichus to Los Angeles 1981 as a bacher. In 1981, I used to walk to every Shabbos from the yeshiva, which is still in the same place, La Brea and Melrose basically. I used to walk from the yeshiva to Pico every Shabbos. I used to lead a youth group. Again, for any of you, this is just humor. Relax. Maybe you're Democrats and you don't know how to laugh anymore, but I'm not sure.
We're still recuperating from last
week. From what? For the last time I came here? Okay. But I'm just saying, I used to lead Mesibas Shabbos at Young Israel of Beverly Hills, 1981. Still in the same place. And in those days, the joke was, Young Israel of Beverly Hills is not young. It's not in Israel, and it's not in Beverly Hills. None of the above. Anshe Emes, around the corner here, we used to call it, lovingly, those days, Anshe Mes. Because the average age of the congregants was deceased. Three Bachram used to, I'm not joking, by the way. Three Bachram would walk from yeshiva every Shabbos, just to make the minyan for Mincha Ma'ariv, otherwise they would not have had a minyan. Mincha Ma'ariv. 7 people with 1 foot in and the other foot on a banana peel, and 3 Bachram from the yeshiva. That was 1981, Judaism on this street. What became Bais Bezalel was then Chabad of Southern Beverly Hills, was already in existence at 9017 Pico. That minyan already existed. I used to be a regular, I was a regular Ben Bais eating by Yossi Reber. We used to eat, even then, 81, we used to hang out there all the time. We had a Chavrus and Gemara.
Wow.
And, but Pico was desolate. When the first pizza store opened on Pico, I remember everyone said, for what? For who? This guy's going to be out of business in 15 minutes. And look today. Look, Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem. What it's become. So here we are, sitting here. So again, if you remember Judaism in Los Angeles from 1981, Mandachar Shmei, who's even going to bring up Judaism in Los Angeles pre-1981, before I came here? Who could only imagine? And you look at Los Angeles, and particularly Pico Robertson in 2019,
BH.
you might say to yourself,
Los Angeles BH.
exactly, you might argue and say to yourself, Mashiach's already here. So therefore you would not begin to appreciate the notion of midbar. You're not able to see the extent to which you're in a midbar, and therefore you may fail to experience that jump start necessary to be able to truly experience Ani L'Doidi, followed by the reciprocation of the Doidi Li. You might get stuck. So you need that midbar experience. You need that. You should come to our side of the 405.
There it is. The sales pitch.
All the way there. That midbar shmama, that desolate desert. Bring along water. There may not be any water the other side of the 405. Who even knows? Bring along gasoline. There may not be any gas stations to fill your tanks there. You're complaining about the tuition bill. Today I went to pick up a meat order at Western Kosher on La Brea and Pico, and afterwards I had a half a tank of gas, but the gas on La Brea right there in those 2-3 blocks, I'm a chai, $3.19. Okay, so I said I'm filling up my tank. I'm here ready to fill up my tank. So I filled up my tank at $3.19. Even my daughter, 12 years old, was with me in the car. She goes, "What? $3.19 a gallon?" Even she was mocking it. The Nestle Madera Chateva. This incredible Nestle, $3.19. So we pulled in, and I filled up with gas. We went from there straight home. There's a Unical station on my corner. Yeah. On my corner. That the only people that fill up at that Unical station are housekeepers, because they don't care. They have their boss's credit card. And kids. You know, the kid, the 16-year-old driving a Mercedes S-Class. Okay? So as we're coming home from the 319, we got on La Brea, and we're driving right past the Unical station on our corner. She goes, "Tati, $4.69?" She couldn't believe her eyes. We just paid $3.19. It's $4.69 at Unical, right on my corner. So there is gas in Brentwood, but I would suggest you bring along with you, if you're going to cross the 405, to come visit us in that adventurous desert wasteland we call the other side of the 405. Outside the Eruv. Oy vey. But only if you're in a Midbar Shmama can you truly experience the jumpstart necessary that will energize you to truly become the Anila Daidi that brings on the reciprocation of Daidi Li. Because when we talk in terms of this the arousal from below, that's supposed to be the Anila Daidi, and the anticipated reciprocation of Daidi Li that comes from Hashem, the arousal from above, this is not some cause and effect, measure for measure. We're talking about quantum leaps here. We're talking about outrageous experiences. And the outrageous experience has to start from us. I want to say l'chaim, a quick l'chaim. First, I always want to start l'chaim. First of all, on a global level, I want to say l'chaim. The Rebbe says in the Sicha Pashas Ei Tafshinun Aleph, come on, people, we can see Mashiach. I mean, I'm paraphrasing slightly. Wake up. In bold letters. It's in bold letters. My dear friend, Rabbi Yaakov Winner, who's the official mashpia of WhatsApp, sent me an excerpt. He's already sent me 8 other things since then. Where is it?
Someone's knocking on the door.
Okay.
Thank you.
Where did he just send this? I posted on my group chat. Where did he send this? Yeah, here it is. Yeah. The Rebbe says, yes, the Rebbe says, Hirais, the lessons, and the instructions this week. Yesh lefarsem b'chol makom u'makom. We have to spread the word and make sure everybody knows every place they are. Al dvar avodah michudas l'chodesh Elul, in reference to the particularly unique avodah of chodesh Elul. Hamanu mezes b'chamish tashtevis ter gemilas chasadim tshuva ugeula. 5 Rashi Tevis in the word Elul that speak to Torah, prayer, good deeds, tshuva, and redemption. Ubad goshim yecheles ben gel Rashi Tevis chamishi. We must underscore and emphasize the 5th Rashi Tevis, geula. And allow it to permeate every aspect of our service of Hashem. By allowing ourselves to become permeated with, and putting forth the effort in the spirit of Geula. You have to do this from a standpoint of absolute anticipation. Gemura, complete. Absolute anticipation. That absolutely, right now, this moment, we will see with our physical eyes. Behold, the King Mashiach has arrived. And this the Rebbe says in bold letters. To announce and to spread the word in all places, with words that truly come from the heart. That Hashem is saying through His servants, the prophets, telling every single Jew, behold, I give you today blessings. To the point where today, literally, with our physical eyes, we will see the bracha of the complete and true redemption. Yes, and the Rebbe says, I want to point out that even those people who aren't yet quite comfortable in their own skin with the idea that Mashiach is coming any second, even if you're a guy who's not really there yet, doesn't make a difference. Tell the world it's coming. Even if you're not quite comfortable in your own skin with the idea of telling the whole world that Mashiach is coming any second, don't make a difference. Just go ahead. Tell everybody. Because even though it hasn't really, it hasn't yet completely and totally grasped your intellect. You haven't been able to wrap your head around it. So the Rebbe says, why would you do it anyway? Because when push comes to shove, you still have emunah. Just because you don't understand it, you can't grasp it, and you can't relate to it, doesn't stop the fact that you have emunah. So therefore you too should be out there telling the whole world. Starting with telling your own family. Just because you don't believe is not a reason to punish your family. Why should they be punished? Just because you have problems and you can't relate to it, the rest of the world needs to hear, your family needs to hear. They're good people. What do you want from them? The kol saying not only your own family, but all those people around you. Every single Jew. Certainly, the Rebbe says, if you put forth a right effort, everyone will absorb it. Everyone will accept it. Even the guy that's saying it. It'll get to him too. Just tell the rest of the world, don't worry, it'll get you too. It'll ultimately reach you in a deeper and meaningful way. So I want to say l'chaim first and foremost. Mashiach is coming, and we can see it, and we can feel it in every single sense of the word. And because we can see it and we can feel it in every sense of the word, it's urgently important that we do it, and that we live it, and that we live it for others as well. So l'chaim l'vracha. But what it demands from us is stepping out of our own boundaries. Who are you that you have boundaries? All of a sudden you know who you are. You're such a smart guy. You figured it out what your boundaries are. You know where I start. This is where I start and this is where I finish. Really? Who died and left you so smart?
And you don't even know who he is. You figured out to talk to him.
Right?
You can ask him. He knows how true that is.
Okay. So there you go. Right? Oh, you're so smart. I used to think I was smart. I became smart and realized that I'm not smart. So l'chaim, we should get past ourselves. Everybody else is ready. The world is ready, please. Please. The world is ready. The world is desperate. The world is yearning. I was at a Brit Milah a week and a half ago. After all these years of dealing with Persians, all these years, everybody has their goals, you know what I'm saying?
Please, no racial slurs.
Oh, it's not a problem. You know, the oldest generation of Persians has zero sense of humor. You do know that, right? They don't know sense of humor whatsoever. So I once told them in shul that, you know what, I went to a psychic. And they all said, oh, Rabbi went to psychic? He's okay to go to psychic? Yeah, I went to a psychic, and I found out that in the previous life, I was a rabbi in Esfahan. And when I was a rabbi in Esfahan, I made my congregants' lives miserable. So because of that, they sent me back again. They gave me Esfahanis, now they make my life miserable.
Okay, I'm going to do a thing to that.
Hey, Jordan, shalom aleichem.
Okay? So, one thing I never experienced in Baruch Hashem, Kain Yirbu, almost 40 years of being with Persians, because 1981 when I came as a Bacher, that was when I first met Persians in a big way, because Fridays we would go on Mivtzayim. You know, the Bachram go out in pairs of two and they go to stores. My route, how long are you living here in Los Angeles?
50 years.
Oh, okay. So you remember what was 81 on La Cienega Boulevard?
People did not even buy anything there.
Okay, nobody was working, exactly. 8 blocks from on La Cienega Boulevard, from Beverly Boulevard to Esmonica Boulevard. 8 blocks, both sides of the street, 85% of the stores were Persian rugs. And nobody was doing any business. There were like 4 stores that were doing business. Everybody else just sat around all day. There was 4 or 5 people. The average Friday Mivtzayim routes, you understand, Bachurim go out in pairs to go put on tefillin. So you come back at the end of the day, you put on 3 tefillin, maybe 4 tefillin. If you had a really, really good route, at least in my days, I don't know what's today, I don't think it's changed that much today. No? If you had a really good route, 6, 7 tefillin. I used to go to La Cienega Boulevard in 1981, those 8 blocks. An average Friday was 50. 50 was a low. It was low. On a good Friday, 70, 75 tefillin. Because every single store you went in, there were 5 or 6 old Persian Jews. There were Persian rugs piled to the ceiling. And they're all drinking tea in the middle of July. And it's Gehenna and you can't breathe. And finally I said, and they say, Rabbi, try mechai. I said, no, what am I going to do with tea in the middle of July? I mean, it's boiling hot outside. No, Rabbi, you don't understand. You don't understand. If you drink the tea now, makes you feel cooler. So I said, that makes as much sense as saying that if I need root canal, I should ask you to stomp on my ingrown toenail, because I'll stop feeling the root canal. Now, needless to say, these people did not know what I was saying, so it didn't make a difference. So we just moved on from there.
Or either that or they do that.
Oh, they did, right? Exactly. So we put on tefillin.
It does work, by the way.
I would imagine. You've tried it, I assume. Anyway, so that's how long.
No, it's Minga the Bain, by the way.
What?
Minga the Bain to have hot water when you're coming from the heat.
Yeah. Anyway, so why am I telling you the story? Because 50, 60, 70 tefillin, I never saw Persians that would say no. Rahman al-Islam, today the younger generation, now they think they're Americanized. And sometimes I'll be at a party, and unless somebody put on tefillin, they go, not necessary, or I don't want to. And I say, dude, you're Persian. Cut it out. Roll up your sleeve. Stop. Anyway, I was at a bris 2 weeks ago. Never seen this before. A guy in his late 70s. I went over to him and asked him to put on tefillin. And he said, no. And I was like, you're putting on tefillin. Stop it. And as I was sort of arguing, not really arguing, his wife is like 4 feet away. And she looks at him like, that Persian wife, fire coming out of the eyes kind of thing, burning through him. And looks at him and she goes, and he gets up, and we're putting on tefillin, and I say to him, when's the last time you did this? He said, never. What? I said, wait a minute, you're pulling my leg. There's no way. What are you talking about? You're the first, 40 years of being with Persians, you're the first Persian Jew I ever met your age. I never put on tefillin. You're pulling my leg. No, I never did this before in my life. So where were you born? Tehran. I said, even if you were born in Tehran, which was technically the more secular Jews that were, but a bar mitzvah? We didn't have bar mitzvahs in my days. Nobody had a bar mitzvah. No one ever dragged you into a shul when you were 13 and put on tefillin? It never happened. I never did it. I was shocked. First time in my life I met such a thing.
I didn't have it.
You hadn't put on tefillin either. You were born where? In Tehran. And you came to America at what age?
13.
From Tehran. Straight to LA? In the 70s.
73.
Okay, but this guy came from Iran much later in life.
Yeah, but I understand what he's saying. Unfortunately, I'm not defending him.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
No, I'm defending.
I'll tell you something.
I had nothing but love and compassion
No,
for
I
him.
appreciate that. I get that. The first time I was introduced to tefillin was through Rabbi Kuni, our rabbi. And it's a wonderful, beautiful story. I was having a root canal. I went to...
How are your toes?
And there's this Hasidic rabbi standing in the parking lot of Ralph's, just attracting attention, and I just had it, root canal was really good. So I go and I say, Rabbi, and I says, come here. Put tefillin on me. That was the first time.
Wow.
But the problem is, Rabbi, in Iran, I don't know how to explain it, but I'm going to share my experience so you may get it. My first introduction to depth and meaning of Judaism was when I read the book, The Garden of Eden, for the first time. I was sitting in my home, this is 10 years ago, 7 years ago here.
Wow.
And I looked at my wife and I said, this is incredible. This is not something I'm accustomed to. Especially me coming from a background of philosophical studies in college and all that nonsense. She turned around and said something which describes what you're saying. We lived in a culture that had no intellectual relationship, understanding of Judaism. We didn't know. We were struggling, hanging on with the skin of our teeth, Rabbi. This was not easy. People in that culture...
You had Muslims, they kept you Jewish.
That's it. Actually, they kept us Jewish.
100%.
It's like Russia.
Very difficult. After I got introduced to Judaism here, and especially Chassidism, I realized we had nothing.
Wow.
You came straight to Los Angeles from Tehran?
Yeah.
What year?
73.
Oh, wow, long before the revolution.
Oh, yeah. So what you're describing, that was the condition.
That was normal.
Absolutely.
That was regular. That was average.
Yeah.
Sure. But putting on film, they did that, no? So L'chaim, we should be able to get out of our own way.
I appreciate that, yes.
We should, every one of us should be able to get out of our own way. And Kemuvim v'gam pashut, if this is going to be a chassidus farbrengen the way it's supposed to be, I'm talking to me, you're just listening. We should be able to get out of our own way once and for all, because there's no greater, and that's what I just read from the Sikha, or the Rebbe is saying openly, just because you're an idiot doesn't mean the rest of the world has to suffer. Get out of your own way. Learn to laugh at yourself. I have. L'chaim. We should have this galus of Melech HaMashiach, and the Rebbe should take us out of Golos, and that should happen right now. Amen. L'chaim. I just want to say that a particular yid that I've been talking to the last 2 days is on the verge of getting out of his own way. So I want to wish him a bracha that the Eibusher should help him, that he should be able to get out of his own way and do what he needs to do.
Amen.
Because forget about that, it'll be helpful to so many hundreds of other Yidden, including myself.
Thousands of other Yidden.
Thousands. It'll be so much helpful to him. It'll be for him, the world will be unbelievable. We'll come bring brachas for him and for his family, so Hashem should give him the brachas that he needs.
Amen.
And that he should do what he knows, but even before he gets a chance to do what he has to do, we should have big Yeshuas that we need right now. Mashiach now, Rebbe, this is no way to run an airline. Chaim.
Go ahead. California, I thought it was all over the world. But it's in California. I mean, how good there was no time.
Huh?
In North California, I mean, how good? So when you say l'chaim, you have to.
So L'chaim.
I said L'chaim. No. In my house, you could sell the same bottle of vodka in the chametz 3 years in a row. Just saying. You got the wrong guy here. Amen.
Come to NoCal for a little bit.
Yeah, well, you don't have to go as far as NoCal. It is.
Listen, Rabbi, you said it yourself. We have to get out of our own way.
That's right.
It starts with saying l'chaim.
Maybe. Amen. Shabbat shalom.
Hashem Oisachayim Hashem Raimei Ma Yemin Hashem Oisachayim
I have a question.
Okay.
Those fighting words.
Yes. Stump the rabbi.
Did I miss your Dvar Torah?
I did a little bit.
Me too.
You told me you had a whole thing prepared for tonight.
Yeah.
So?
So now I'm going to continue with the question.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay.
Pass the phone over.
The way that I understood this gullus is that this is the... Yeah, wait a second. Gullus of Sinas Chinam.
Yeah.
Meaning that because there was Sinas Chinam amongst the Jewish people, then Avodah Zarah came into the temple and we were thrown out of Eretz Yisrael for the current exile of the last couple of thousand years. And what I've been struggling with is why that the counter to Sinas Chinam obviously is Avos Yisrael or Avos Brias or Avos Tanugim, like loving amongst each other. And why that's not something that is outside of like the Rebbe's Mifsaim in a certain sense, but it's not something that we put front and center in the same way that we put like tefillin or Shabbos candles. Hear me out.
Go ahead.
When we go to shul and we have a conversation, we have like a story about putting on tefillin with someone. It's really easy and accessible at a certain level. So it's easy to tell a story like that. It's easy to get to an inspiring story. But something that we don't have, and it is more difficult, is connection stories between people that wouldn't necessarily be people that you'd think would cross paths and connect in a positive way. What I mean is, and I'll just say this because it's in the controversial area, in the political sphere right now, we have so much polarization, and we have so much sinas chinam, baseless hatred. We don't know who the people are. We're not dealing with them as individuals, and we treat them with the same kind of, I guess, lahavdil in a different way. But the way that when chassidus first started, and misnagdim chassidim would like fight with each other, and just because of the group you're associated with, you don't even know this person. And what do we do to bridge over that, and to cross over that, and to create a facility? Because, okay, you have to sift ideas, and there is a hierarchy of ideas, and there is a meritocracy. There's better ideas and there's worse ideas, and whichever position you ascribe to. But how do we pass through that to connect with people as individuals and squash this polarization, this sinas chinam, so that we can actually build the kind of society that we want to live in, the Mashiach-tika, avira that's positive?
Is this a rhetorical question?
No, it's a real question.
What did the Misnagdim do? And what did they?
If someone was associated with the chassid with chassidism, it's like to the extent where people were excluded from community events. It's like you're not part of our group. It's kilo like racism.
How did they solve it?
They haven't. We've solved it for them.
But there isn't somebody that represents that in the I guess from Chassidim. but the way that Chassidim do it doesn't explicitly address these kinds of issues.
I know what you're saying, but I don't know what you're saying.
You don't? Okay, so I've seen a couple things that I've loved. That, for example, you'll have like when people on Mitzrayim are going to put on tefillin political rallies, and like one of my favorite ones was like a Christian group that was with the signs chanting something, and one of the, like a Bacher found out that one of the guys was a person with like a anti-abortion, like one of those things, wearing like with them putting on tefillin, like those kinds of beautiful things. But it doesn't speak out in an intellectual way. It's not in an explicit way. Like we'll say do a mitzvah, but it's not like invite someone from a different political party over to your house and have a farbrengen. We don't talk about it explicitly that way. At least not that I've seen.
We'll talk about it. That's what I need to do.
Start doing it. I'll share with you. I mean, the Purim after President Trump was elected.
Tisha B'Av.
I don't know if you know this. Yeah. Do you know that Breitbart's headquarters is literally around the corner?
No.
It's at the corner of Saltaire and Esocenti. And they try so hard so nobody knows where they are. That their suite has no. It's locked. You can't get in. There's no doorbell to ring the suite number to ring it, and it doesn't say anything on the plaque. There's no plaque by that suite. It's an office building on the corner. There's no. They're not listed on the directory.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess people know that it's there. So, for some reason, the wonderful people in this country who felt like Breitbart was the cause of this incredible debacle of the election of Donald Trump as president, they're looking for somebody to blame. So they made a protest right outside Breitbart, and they scheduled for Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon, So around 60 or 70 people showed up. And directly across the street in front of the Comerica Bank, right across from the Comerica Bank, so there was a counter-protest, a pro-Trump group of about 15. There was maybe 60 or 70 in the anti-Trump protesting Breitbart. My nephew was in town to help me with Purim. Two of my nephews. So I said, take a Megillah, yarmulkes, books, and shalom, and go to the anti-Breitbart protest. Because I have no doubt whatsoever there are Jews protesting there. Don't do anything about the pro-Trump people. Those are for sure Christians. I guarantee there's not one Jew there. There's not one Jew.
Are you sure?
Don't worry about that. They stopped to ask them.
I know a lot of Jews that are.
I'm just telling you that protest was.
Okay.
Okay. So then they crossed the street, and they walked into the middle of the crowd, and immediately, and they're wearing funny hats, the two of them. And immediately, two people said, "Is that Megillah?" And they're standing in the middle of all those people. They're standing right in the center. They gathered 5-6 Jews around in the middle of the street and handed them books and grockers. And I said, okay, everybody say a bracha. And I did shalom with them right there in the street. And they read the Megillah for them. The people that were standing at that protest, I don't know if there is a single topic in the political spectrum that I see eye to eye with them on. I don't know if there's even one topic. And as Jews, I believe that politically, their approach rivals that of the Evreiske Sektia in Russia and of the Judenrat in Germany. And we all know where that wound up. And so because of that, they're very scary. So I had two choices. I could have sent my two nephews. My two nephews, both from New York. One of them actually from Germany, but lives in New York. Would have had no problem if I would have told them, go into the middle of the crowd and scream, "Stupid Jews, what are you doing here? It's Purim. What are you doing here? It's Purim. What are you wasting your time protesting Breitbart?" But that's not what the Rebbe wants. It's not the Rebbe's way. The Rebbe wants us, our frame of reference, to be one of Ahavas Yisrael.
Mm-hmm.
Everything we do is out of Ahavas Yisrael. When you browbeat somebody into putting on tefillin, that's not necessarily mitzvah tefillin. That's Ahavas Yisrael. Because you have to help this guy get out of his own way. That's really what you're trying to do. Because any second now, the Rebbe's going to blow the shofar, and that same guy is going to hunt you down in front of the Bais HaMikdash. And he's going to go, "Dude, we talked, and you let me get away without putting on tefillin. You call yourself a friend? You call yourself my brother? You let me slip away? What's the matter with you?" Right? So it's pure Ahavas Yisrael. It's not mitzvah tefillin. Even I, when I sit with a Yid, and all of his money is tied up in cash. Okay? And I sit and I'm trying to extricate some of that cash out of his pocket into the Rebbe's pocket. That's also pure Ahavas Yisrael. Because Mashiach is going to come and he's going to say, "Rabbi Hecht, you beat me up about everything under the sun, but look at all this money, it's weighing me down. I'm trying to walk to the Bais HaMikdash." Now that I was in Israel, you know, my first time in Israel was for their wedding. This past late winter, early spring. I've never been to Israel before in my life. Huh?
Other base.
Other base. I'd never been to Israel before in my life. Me and my wife said, "I know that no matter where you're going in Yerushalayim, you're going uphill. It doesn't make a difference. If you're going to a place, it's uphill, and when you're coming back for the same place, it's still uphill. I don't know how that works. I'm not exactly sure, but no matter where you're going, it's uphill."
It's growing in Ruchnius.
Yes. No matter what, you're going uphill. I think at one point Friday night, Yisrael thought he was going to have to call out Sola to get me back to the hotel, or at least dump me in a wheelchair or something. Anyway, you should know that 3 weeks later I was in New York. A week and a half later I was in New York for when I came in for Yoni's wedding. A week later than yours, and I was on Kingston Avenue, and walking up Kingston was like, "This is nothing." Right? So here's this guy now. Mashiach has already come. He's walking up the hills to try to get. He came in Sha'ar Yafo, and I was trying to figure out how to get to the Kotel. And he's screaming at me that all this money that was sitting in his mattress is weighing him down. He can't walk, and it's my fault that he's stuck with all this money that he's being forced to carry on his back. Because had I gotten it out of him before Mashiach came, had I extricated it from his pocket before Mashiach came, he wouldn't have this huge load. Where's my Ahavas Yisrael? Mm-hmm. So even that, you go out to raise money from somebody, it's pure Ahavas Yisrael.
But at the same time, I've sat at so many Shabbat tables where the whole conversation is like talking smack about the people that you're saying, like, okay, so are they doing the right thing on Purim? Are they doing the right thing? That's what. But the whole conversation for the whole Shabbos meal is just talking about negativity.
No, redirect it.
And so that's what I try and do.
In.
Yeah, okay.
With a Freilichkeit. You know what they always said in New York? You attract more bees with honey than with vinegar.
Mm-hmm. People
want to hang around people that are positive. So if you talk smack about the people talking smack to the people who are talking smack, then you're just another guy talking smack.
How do we know that that happens in the future? When Mashiach comes?
But the Rambam says so. Forget about chassidus. The Rambam says so. Madana mitzuyim kafar. You don't need any money anymore.
But how do you know?
Psak did in the Rambam.
How do we know that it affects us like that in the future?
What else would it do? If you all of a sudden found out that money had no value, you've been working your you-know-what off your entire life to reach a certain level of financial stability. And then all of a sudden, like, I don't know, Argentina in the 1980s or Venezuela currently, all of a sudden, shalom, the dollar is completely devalued. And all of a sudden, the famous mashal that we all know, we're all told when we were kids, you find out that the only thing that has value is chicken fat. Schmaltz has value. Everything you have is worthless. And you woke up one day and you looked around and you said, I've been working 18-hour days my entire life, and what did I accumulate? Garbage. I need chicken fat instead. Right? That's what it's going to be like. If money has no value, and the Rambam says it has no value, and the reason it has no value is because everything you ever needed to know about economics you learned in the 6th grade. It's called supply and demand.
We still need money until we get Mashiach.
But that's not your goal. Can't be your goal. So you have to live in Torah and Ma'asim Tovim. You have to live. Do you need a car? And I don't know you from other than we met at Mount Sinai. But do you need a car that's more expensive than most people's houses? Why? Do you need a house? You're living in a house. It's you, your wife, 1.2 children, 2 dogs. You built a house that's more of a hotel than a house. There are more housekeepers living in the house than people. Because how else can you keep up with maintaining these rooms?
But what if you're doing it for the purpose of having a Shabbos table, having a guest, having...
You better make sure that that's really what's going on.
So what are you
So
saying?
before,
Just work until
chewing
you
your
can
cud, chewing your
work
cud.
until
Sure, you sitting talking to somebody. Yeah, I sent somebody in the office. He tells me he has no money to give me. He just bought a brand new Maserati.
You're saying work until you're
I said
just there.
you needed a Maserati. Why did you need a Maserati? He said, Rabbi, don't understand. You don't understand.
So how much car do you
You
need?
don't understand. You don't understand, Rabbi.
I don't have a Maserati.
Now that I got this Maserati, I love it. I'm not, and this is very, usually I use hyperbole for purposes of illustrating a point. This one is not even that much hyperbole. This is really real story, real conversations. You don't understand. Because I have Maserati, now I can do business with bigger people and do business with other people and become even richer. Become even richer, then I'm really going to be able to give tzedakah. About that for an animal soul. You know, the first guy that said something very, very close to that to me, I looked at him and I went, wow, that is fascinating. And then he said to me, really? Really? I said, yeah. He said, why do you find it so fascinating? I said, you're a textbook Tanya. The Alter Rebbe described you. And I've never met anyone in real life. You've been in my textbooks all my life. And now here you are, alive and sitting in front of me. And he was like, was that a compliment? Let's study the pertinent portions of Tanya and you can decide on your own whether it's a compliment.
Oy.
Right? So you know, when it comes to tzedakah, sveika is l'chumra. When it comes to having Avos Yisrael for another Jew, sveika is l'chumra.
English.
When in doubt, do more. When in doubt, do more. You can't do too much. You can never have too much Avos Yisrael. No such thing. They tell it in parenting also, because now the new style in parenting is tough love and training their kids. Parents need to sleep train their children. And when I started to hear people, My kid is 3 months sleeping through the night. This one's 6 to 8 weeks sleeping through the night. And look at these people like liars. You're just lying. You just want to show off. You're full of baloney. And they say, what do you mean? Why you say that? I said, I got more than 10 kids. Not one ever slept through the night.
But Rabbi,
Some of them are 21. They still don't sleep through the night. Okay?
it's been worse.
What kind of baloney? What? So you do that. So I watched Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem. Zachur Latov. You could say, Baruch Hashem, all my children, and the vast majority of our grandchildren, Baruch Hashem, the Zuchut, Kaiser, they were all born at the same Kaiser Cadillac. All born right here. Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem. Very good. They were God's shluchim. So over the course of the years of my kids being born, I watched the evolution of prenatal care and actual labor delivery, etc. at Kaiser. And the brochures they'd give us. I actually used to look at the stuff that they gave us because I'm a people person. So I want to see, okay, what are they telling the world? Because at one point there was a thing at Kaiser that you couldn't get to see an obstetrician for prenatal care until you took a 4-hour orientation course. You're going to orient a woman on how to be pregnant. I don't know what that's supposed to mean. So my wife would come to these classes, and unfortunately, I don't want to sound racist or anything, but you filled out 25 pages of papers. And what was on these 25 pages of papers? It was 17 ways to Sunday asking you, do you know who the Father is? That's what it was. Okay? The same question over and over again in different form. Do you know who the Father is? That's what it really was. And how much drugs are you taking? That's what it was. That's what it was. So, and my wife knew everybody there because my wife is my wife. Any of you that know my wife know what my wife is like. So there's nobody in the entire department that she didn't know. She had mezuzahs on all the Jewish tractors doors, etc., etc. So even the African American nurse who was in charge of the orientation, my wife would walk in and she would go, Chana, just sign over here and go home. Just let my wife, please leave. Don't stay here. She let my wife off for the orientation. So they gave out this. One of my kids, one of the younger kids, our children, they gave this book, a booklet titled, "You Cannot Love Your Child Too Much." That was the title of the brochure. You cannot love your child too much. Because now we're in a world, okay, no, shalom, take the kid into your bed, shalom, go to your child when they wake up in the middle of the night crying. No, we're going to teach them, we're going to sleep train them, we're going to, I don't know what them, right? So that was the way the pendulum had swung. And it had swung so far that Kaiser had to create a brochure to hand out to their patients to explain to mothers that no, don't worry about it. You can't over-love your child. No such thing. And the whole brochure was about, don't worry, if your kid is crying, yes, pick your baby up, kiss them, hug them, soothe them. That was a whole brochure that they gave every mom when they were leaving. And I thought to myself at the time, we should make such a brochure. You cannot love a Jew too much. It's a great title for a brochure. You cannot love a Jew too much. We'll start handing that out. Every time you see a Yid who's nasty to you, hand him the brochure. You cannot love a Jew too much.
Did you make them?
No. I've had lots of good ideas that I don't have time for. But I probably should still do it. But it's the truth. That's what Avos Yisrael is. That's what Avos Yisrael is. You cannot love a Jew too much. The Jew who screams at you, who says, why do you have to walk around dressed like that? Makes no difference. He's still my brother. Did you see that thing? I'm sure you saw it, right? Made the round on WhatsApp. I probably could find it. From that news show in Israel, where the guy's talking about the new battalion in the Israeli military. You didn't even see it. Actually, at least 10 people saw it. At least 10 people sent it to me. I can probably find it on my phone now. It's this panel. I guess one of these news television shows in Israel is a panel, and one guy's sitting there. Three of the guys are completely not religious. One guy has got a little payas, a big yarmulke, obviously, and a beard. But the one guy, I guess, is sitting in the center. So he must be like one of the main hosts. Total shaven head, and he starts in on. Turns out, I discovered a new battalion in the Israeli military, and he says, as a joke, that the second I told people that I created a new battalion in the Israeli military, a military commander that I know called me on the phone and said I have to do this without my permission. Who is it? And he says, this new battalion, he says the average battalion in the Israeli military is 6,000 soldiers. 7,000 soldiers, 8,000 is already a gigantic battalion. He said, this battalion, it turns out, has 15,000 strong in this battalion, 15,000 strong. And who are they? He says, and he starts to list off. United Hatzalah, Zaka, Yedidim. He starts to list off all of the Orthodox Haredi help organizations and what they do. And he has a list in front of him. And he's going through this one, this one, this one, this one. And he said, these people don't do 2 years of service, they do it for their lives. And in the midst of all of this list, he goes, Bo natchil al Chabad, ma ledaber. If we're going to start to talk about Chabad, where's this conversation going to go? I mean, it's like that. If we insert that into this conversation, forget about it. That's what he says. He says, even if you leave Chabad out, forget about Chabad. Even if you leave Chabad out, look what's going on in Israel today, he said. How many people who, at the drop of a hat, and he tells the story, not a religious guy, totally is the head shaven. He told the story of he was coming home from a party with his wife and his mother-in-law in a deluge, an absolute deluge. He got a flat tire. And he called Hatzalah. And Hatzalah said, no, not us, call Yedidim, another organization. He called Yedidim. 6 minutes later, a guy with a beard and payas shows up in the deluge, is changing my tire.
The deluge.
Pouring a marble, falta maldo. And he's standing and changing my tire. He says, I went out with the umbrella to try to protect him a little bit, but it was, brach levatala. He's changing my tire. And he starts to scream at one of the other guys sitting at the table, and he goes, Yair Lapid would come in the rain to change somebody's tire? Would he even slow down? There's no limit to Avos Yisrael. And the world knows it. Rahman al-Tzan should never happen again. They should be the first ones out of business, Zaka. They should be the first Jewish organization to be put out of business. And the first one that would say, Amen, put us out of business, would be Zaka themselves. Right? Rahman al-Tzan, the work that they do they only come, if Rahman al-Tzan, it's Haredi Jews that are the victims? Do they only come to treat Rahman al-Tzlan when they, without going into the gory details? Are they looking to preserve only Orthodox Jews?
In case anybody doesn't know, Zaka does cleanup.
After Rahman al-Tzlan, terrible events. No, they look to preserve the sanctity of every single Jew, immaterial of who the victim was. If the victim was Rahman al-Tzlan, somebody with a long beard and payas, or somebody who was dancing in the streets of Tel Aviv on Yom Kippur. Wouldn't make a difference to them.
Can I say something?
I'm just going to finish one more line, and that's what Anila Doidi V'Doidili is really about. Getting over yourself. Nothing's measured. Just show love. Love another Jew unconditionally, and you don't have to worry. Hab hold ayidin ve'rebish to dir hold hab. That was Farsi. Show unconditional love. It says not yoin yoin. Show unconditional love to a Jew. Hashem will show unconditional love to you. It's not complicated. It's not complicated. Chaim, what were you going to say?
I'm not trying to negate, loving a fellow Jew, but there is a concept that I heard of, I think, when you're raising kids, that you shouldn't attend to them every time they cry, and you should allow them to be self-sufficient and to gain independence. How would you coincide that metaphor?
You're asking, is this parenting class now? Is that what you're asking about?
Well, parent.
Here's what I could tell you. We have become so addicted to these things and everything that comes with them that I promise you we don't show enough love to our children. Guaranteed we don't. So when we max out on the correct amount of love, then we can worry about the tough love part. First, we got to at least max out on the love that we're supposed to have. Then we'll worry about overdoing it. What happens is we overcompensate, quote unquote, on this quote unquote love that requires us to engage in tough love because we're not giving them the love we're supposed to give them. So because we're busy texting or reading silly stories on the internet or whatever the heck it is that we're doing. And again, reminder, disclaimer, I'm talking to me, you're just listening. Okay? Because we're wasting so much time doing that, so then all of a sudden, the kid comes up to you, and you're busy reading, I don't know, Lashon Hara, and who wants to stop reading Lashon Hara? I mean, nobody wants to interrupt that. So you're, or maybe even better, you're sending Lashon Hara. Could be even better than that. And the kid comes up to you and goes, okay, I have the screen open on the other computer. Can I buy a Rolls Royce? And you go, yeah, just go ahead, use my credit card, right? So the problem is not that we're overdoing it on the love. The problem is we don't give them enough love, and therefore we give them the wrong love. Did that make sense? Yeah.
Fine.
Mr. Al, do you have some Torah to share?
Yeah, where's your Dvar Torah?
Because
I'm turning into a pumpkin in a few minutes.
Simcha Parat Geder. Let's sing a niggun.
By the way, I just want to translate what your wife said. You didn't know it. It wasn't, do you have some Torah to share? It was she meant, please share some Torah.
Thank you.
No problem.
Can we take you home?
Please share that Torah you know.
Can we have a niggun?
Ki yonu
Amecha ve'ata
Elikeinu Oyanu banecha
ve'ata Elikeinu
Oyanu banecha
So first thing I want to say, I'd like to thank my wife for encouraging me to do this. Rabbi Levin, you said earlier, talking about the split hooves and chewing your cud, that there's different kinds of people that do things in different ways. My comfort level is definitely not doing this kind of thing. And and my wife is very, I think, healthily encouraged me and helped me to chew on my cud and work my way through and metabolize this really incredible growth opportunity. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. You have no idea. So thank you very much. With that in mind, and talking about the idea of midbar and what we don't know and what we don't see, there's something really special about having an opportunity to discover what it is that difficult thing that we're working on. For every person, it's different. But we all, if we are quiet enough and we listen to ourselves inside, we can hear what that thing is. And if you take a moment and you listen to your neshama screaming, "Let me out, let me out. Why are you doing this to me?" And your nefesh bahamis is like, "What? Did you hear something?"
Wow.
And when we do hear it, and when we grab onto it, and we are able to inspire our nefesh bahamis, the thing that's so difficult actually becomes fun. Because for whatever reason, we were built in a way to love challenges. Humans love overcoming challenges when we see the growth on the other side. So I bless everybody that we should be able to clearly identify our challenges to the point where it becomes something that's inspiring, and that inspiration should help carry us through to the other side of that. Rabbi Hacht, you were speaking before about the idea of a midbar, and this is what I said before both of you guys came, was that the midbar, for me, we learned a couple maimarim and where the midbar represents. On one hand, midbar represents the concept of geula, because we leave Mitzrayim and we go into the geula of the desert. But then, and not only that, right, it has geula in the sense of Hashem is in a revealed level there that's not like anywhere else. That to the meraglim, who are holding on a really high level, before we're entering Eretz Yisrael, they're like, whoa, why would I go down into the grub, low, crass, working with my hands when I don't even have to do my own laundry here? And then start to have to do work with my own hands, and then so midbar looks like geula, but unfortunately but in truth it is actually a gullus, because it's the transition into the Eretz Yisrael, that higher level that grabs deeper. And the struggle that I think that I've been trying to work on for myself this year is identifying where my actual boundaries are between my geula and my gullus. Because depending on where you're standing and the perspective that you choose, one thing can look like a geula, but it's actually a gullus. Or something can be my geula, and in the midst of it being a geula, transform into a gullus because I've achieved a new level. And what does that mean for us in our own avoda? And how do we use that in order to leverage ourselves to the next level? So I remember a wonderful vart by Rabbi Twersky, that's a video on YouTube that he had, that he talks about an analogy. Why did Hashem create the lobster? Has anyone else heard of this one? So Rabbi Twersky speaks about that a lobster has a shell, and as a lobster grows, it's one of the kinds of creatures that needs to shed its shell in order to grow. It's an exoskeleton. And when it reaches its maximum capacity and it fills up its shell, it has to shed its shell and becomes completely naked for the transition period when it grows a new shell. And it has this terrifying transition time that is required for it to grow. In order to grow, it has to shed its shell and be naked. So now I have this decision to make. I can either shed my shell, I can shed my protection and grow, but be naked and terrified in the middle and risk being attacked by a predator and eaten, or I can stay safe where I am. And what the question that basically is stimulated here for me in relation to what I was saying before is what is that thing, what is the shell that at my last level was my protection and my safety and my security, and in a lot of cases the thing that was connecting me to Hashem. That was my lifeline. And now that same lifeline actually is tying me down to a lower level because I've seen something that's higher. Rabbi Akiva Tatz has an idea that I love about the idea of with tefillah, that when we're davening, we're davening to reveal our ratzon, right? What's my highest ratzon? What's the ratzon of my nefesh elokis? What is it that I want in this world? What is it that I want in a really deep, fundamental way? And Rabbi Hecht, you said before about why is it that I want money? And when I follow the question, what is it that I want? I don't actually care about money. I care about security. I care about being able to provide for my family. What's the root? What's the ratzon that I actually have? And when I dig through and I polish my gemstone and my diamond that I find that's rough, and I have my gemstone and I get to that polished stone, at a certain point, that ratzon isn't actually the highest level. There's a next thing. And what my davening becomes is, Hashem, I need a new ratzon. I want something that's a higher level than this. How is it that we can then open ourselves up and allow ourselves to let that old ratzon die? That thing that was the root, the anchor for me, and allow myself into this next level where it's new territory, I'm completely naked, and I have to push away the thing that I thought was my ayin, but really is my yesh. I don't have an answer. I'm good.
Can I ask a question to add on top of that?
Yeah.
I know it's not typical that women interject, but I'm not very typical. Does the lobster really have a choice? I was raised in Brentwood. What do you think? Does the lobster even really have a choice? Or does it think it has this choice? Regardless of whether the lobster wants to or not, the shell is breaking, you're going to be naked, and then another one is going to grow, because that's the way it goes. So you could be simcha about it, or you could stay in your shell and cry and let your ego and your Yetzer Hara have this oh my God, woe is me moment. That's your choice. Your choice isn't, is my shell going to break or not? It's going to break.
So I can't speak for lobster. We can ask one. But
for chickens,
for humans,
a lobster doesn't have a choice. It's going to grow, and the shell's going to come off, and it's got to be vulnerable.
But for people,
we could use it for an example to say, and something to emulate, is that we have the choice, and we can say, goodbye shell, I got to go. I have to grow.
So people have the choice. People have the choice, and
all my life I just viewed them as gigantic cockroaches.
I learned this with the context of Pesach, because Pesach is the Yom HaGeula, where one of my rebbeim in yeshiva asked, "Is the Pesach that is the Geula that you're having this year? Is it the same Geula that you had last year? Is this the same Pesach that you had last year? Is this a new Geula?" And I remember then, not long after that, I was in a martial arts class and I was talking to my teacher, and he said, many people will work a job for 20 years, and at the end of it, they have done 1 year 20 times. They're whatever at it. And then there's that person, the people that really excel, is the person who, it's not because they're smarter, it's not because they're any more capable, it's because they say, this year I'm going to do this 1 year, but the next year I'm going to do my second year. And the third year I'm going to do my third year. And each year they grow, and they allow themselves, for whatever reason, maybe the unique thing about them is that they're okay being uncomfortable, or they push themselves to be uncomfortable. But when we go through that process and we let ourselves experience that discomfort, and with Pesach specifically, I remember learning, why is it that the Chachamim decided that the punctuation in the Seder should be 4 cups of wine, right? This is a rabbinical, everything about it is rabbinical. There's 2 mitzvahs for the night of the Seder, right? It's eating matzah and telling the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim. That's it. Everything else is rabbinical. So why, when they're going to design a program for us, why is it that the program has the periods, the breaks are drinking wine? So I learned one beautiful idea is that when you have a drink, before the drink and after the drink, you actually feel different. There's an experiential difference between before and after. And different, something that's an intellectual. Is this intellectual, or is it coming from my nefesh elokis?
Or maybe that's shabbat, because maybe you shouldn't be having a drink when your drinks aren't good for you.
No, that could be that. Okay, that's fine. But the point is not about the drinking. But the point is that when we're doing the right things that are allowing us to grow, we stretch ourselves. We feel different afterwards. It's not a routine. And you know that you're in the right place when you're pushing yourself past the routine. You're like on that edge. But only humans really seem to have the ability to do that and push themselves that way. And we have a choice that we don't. And everybody knows the story of the mosquito, right, where we're compared to being less than a mosquito, that Adam Arishon is created last. It's the last creation because it's the most important creation. And then what makes us so important is that we have the ability to choose. Why is it that we're the most important creation? But then it says that we can be less than a mosquito, because a mosquito, even when the mosquito is doing like sucking blood, it's the taking. That's all that it does is take. That's just its nature. It's following its nature. So it's a lobster. It's shedding its shell. But with a human being, we can be that, but we can also not be that. And if you cannot be that, but you become that, how low is that? It's actually much worse. So we should all have clarity on finding what that thing is for us, and have ease and fluidity and support and everything that we have, that we can, that Hashem should help us to overcome that and move past it and show us Mashiach, so that...
Help me not be critical, okay? I didn't like that last bill.
No? Okay.
Just in the last week...
It's a real farbrengen.
I heard that there was... that the big... America has the worst eating problems of any country in the world. And it's crazy because Americans can, it's like if there was ever a free choice about how to eat, if you wanted to be vegan or you wanted to be keto or whatever you want, you could do. And the problem is in America is that people have anxiety